There are a few tools out there that allow you to do cross-browser automation. Playwright's a bit of a new entrance to that. Let's mash on that.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Asp.Net Monsters. In today's episode, we're going to delve into the quagmire that is browser automation, on which the rocky shores have crashed many a developer over the years, only to crawl out of the surf screaming, "Why? Why do I have to write pause and sleep so many times in my tests?"
Indeed. So you've done this before then, Simon?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
It has been a globally miserable experience.
Indeed. So enter Playwright, and I'm actually pretty new to Playwright. I've just started playing around with it, but I'm hoping to explore it here through a series of episodes. We'll start today with just getting started, launching the browser, and see what we can do with it. And then we'll take a look at, there's a few things that are really interesting to me specifically about Playwright. So as some background, if you've heard of the tool called Puppeteer before, which was another cross-browser testing tool, or Chromium testing tool at least, this is written by the same people. Those people, I believe, used to work for Google and were hired by Microsoft, and now they created Playwright. There's a few things that are really interesting to me about it, though. So it does the cross-browser thing, Chromium, WebKit, Firefox. You can run it headless or not, so you can actually see the browser running, or just run it headless, which you would do if you're running it through like part of your CI/CD pipeline. There's some really interesting hooks in there in terms of being able to simulate the network, which is really interesting to me. Which we'll explore not today, but soon, and in different devices and a few other things. So let's dive into it and just see what it's like to use. So we're gonna start with we need a test application. So I'm just gonna use the one that I used in the last series of episodes I did, which is just this funny little app that shows dates, or public holidays rather. So when this launches, it displays a list of public holidays that are coming up, and then there's another version of the app that's a view sample. So when you navigate to that page, it loads up a whole view app. So this is the page that we're going to try to go to and at least verify that something's on the page, and that maybe take a screenshot of it or something. So that's what we're going to attempt to do. Again, I'm new to Playwright, so this is going to be a bit of an experiment for me as much as it is for everybody watching. Let's start by creating a test folder. So Playwright is a node-based tool. You install it using npm. My application that I'm testing in this case isn't a node tool or npm-based, so I don't have like a package.json yet. So what I'm doing is just creating a test folder in here that is currently empty, where I plan to put my Playwright tests. But first I need to install Playwright, but I also kind of need a package.json that I can work with here that will define the dependencies that I'm using. So I'm going to start with, what is it, npm init, I believe. I don't really care too much about this because it's for like
everything is enter.
Yeah. Okay, so now I have a basically empty package.json, and I can go and install Playwright, which I will do by copying this command. So npm install -d because it's a development dependency. Playwright.
Double npm.
npm. Weird. Okay.
Across the sky.
So I've already installed that. It was relatively quick because I'd installed it on another project when I just was testing this out. The first time you do it, it does take a little while because it has to download Chromium, WebKit, and Firefox, the latest versions. And then it puts that in the package cache for me so that it doesn't have to go and install it again. So that's installed, and it was relatively quick this time. Now let's fire up Visual Studio Code, which I'll use to author this test. We can see now my package JSON. There's my dependency on Playwright. And we'll just go ahead and create a new file. I'll call it basic tests. And it's going to be JavaScript that we're writing. So first thing we need to do is pull in, we'll start with testing with Chromium. I'll say const Chromium equals require. And then so now I have Chromium there that I can test with. We need to actually write the test. Everything is asynchronous, which kind of gets us away from the whole putting all those pauses in there. So by default, Playwright is going to wait for things to be ready for for us to interact with, allegedly. So we'll see if that's true.
In theory, Selenium did that too, but it never really seemed
to work really properly. Okay, so we're going to do chromium.launch. So it's going to launch an instance of Chromium for me, and then I'm going to say page equals await browser.new page, and then I'm going to tell it await page dot. I'm getting autocomplete here, which is handy. So here I'm going to give it a URL, and the URL I want is the one that it had opened to. I'll just copy it here. And then assume we do some things. And then await browser dot close. Close it up to make sure that it's all cleaned up. But I've written a test. All it's going to do is go to the page and then close the browser. But I should be able to run it now by doing node basic web test.
We need to do an episode on tab completion.
Where I just hit tab instead of typing things?
Yeah.
Okay, so that returned but did nothing. And the reason it did nothing is that this actually ran, by default, it runs headless. So if I want to actually see the browser, I need to tell it headless false as an option. This is one of my launch options. Other handy options like muting the audio. That sounds pretty useful.
You catch it on a regular browser.
Okay, so that launched really fast, and it did it on. I'm going to comment out the close so that we can actually catch what it's doing here.
So, like that first time, it actually ran that quickly?
It did, yeah. So there it went to the page.
I was amazed at the startup time is that low.
Yes, it was really fast, which is promising in my hope that this is going to be a tool that I will use going forward.
So right off the bat, I see that it went to like localhost 44.355. Now that's what you set in the test, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I know some other stuff like Browser Cafe, they insert a proxy between the sites so that they can control the browser using JavaScript. But this doesn't look like it's doing that. So this is actually doing like the automation of the browser API, which is what Selenium used to do. Probably still does.
I'm not sure actually if. Yeah, I don't know.
So does it inject any additional scripts or anything? It just magically manages to do it with the automation API?
I suppose if we looked at the dev tools, we could probably tell, right? So if we look at sources.
Let's look at the JS files. I mean, no, it's pretty much.
It doesn't look like it injected anything in there.
Interesting.
Unless it was injected like directly into the page. It doesn't look like it.
Okay, interesting.
It looks like it's the app running clean.
Cool.
Okay, so let's see if we can do a couple of interesting things. Like maybe once that page loads, we'll go to the next page, which is this one. So would we do page navigation?
So you could probably, because JavaScript is interpreted, you could probably run this just inside of Node and just type in commands and build up your application, your test interactively.
I don't know if you could because of the async part of this. Would that still work? I'm not
I
sure.
don't know.
Maybe. Okay, so here's one thing that's interesting. Actually, let's take a screenshot because that's something that is supposedly easy to do here. I can just do await page.screenshot. And I can tell it where to go. I should give it an extension. And let me just close this. I'm going to put the close back in there. Let's see how quickly we can just launch it and get a screenshot. And will it be a screenshot of like after the page is actually rendered? I mean, that looks promising.
I think you can just open that inside of Visual Studio Code.
Oh, can you?
I think so.
Apparently I can't open it in the picture app, so. Amazing.
Cool. All right, so that definitely looks like it rendered. Now that page is just static HTML, right?
That page is, yes.
Okay,
so
cool.
That's where, let's just say we go to view. What I actually want to do is go to the main page and then click on that link, but let's do this for now and just see what it looks like as we continue our fumbling through this. I mean, learning. It waited till it was rendered. So that's pretty cool. So one of the things that you could do, even if you didn't do like full browser testing with this, is just, have a script that launches the page with different profiles for different devices and drop screenshots into your build output to show what the app looks like on all those different platforms, or different screen sizes at least. I mean, that right there has some value. And launching it with the different browsers. So I could pull in other browsers here too. So I could do Firefox and then just repeat all the same things with the other browser. You should be able to do those in parallel as well. The concept of that context I was sort of talking about, like doing. Here's an example that they have. So I could do browser context, and I could tell it that I want this to be they have a bunch of devices that you can. So I can tell it, let's run this in, actually let's do WebKit. I should be able to do WebKit. So we'll do WebKit, we'll launch this under the context of this locale with this location if it was an app that was using the geolocation API, tell it where it is, tell it what device to look like, and then run everything through that context. So context.newPage instead of browser.newPage. And this would be WebKit. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, it did not like the WebKit does not like my certificate there. So that didn't work.
Because it probably uses its own certificate store.
Yeah, I will just go back to Chromium for this particular test and see if that whole context thing still works.
Tapia.
Huh. That is pretty cool. I don't know, Simon. I'm liking this so far.
Yeah, so some of the things that I have seen be problematic are, I guess, like page level interactions. I mean, we don't want to look at these things now, but stuff in the future. So, like, you click on a link, does it actually wait for the JavaScript to finish rendering components on the page? Another place I found to be really difficult to deal with is like OAuth, because it redirects you to an external site. So, like, that's one that
oh yeah, that'll be a good one to
some
test.
tools really have problems with. Yeah, because you don't like necessarily have control over some external page, but if this is doing browser automation, it might be fine with that. Yeah.
I will show you another cool thing, because one of the things I always struggle with is actually figuring out the code I need to write to do the automation. So I actually have a code gen tool here, and I can point it to my app. What was the URL for my app? This guy. So that is going to do a couple things for me, and we'll see if we can demonstrate it here. Okay, so it shows me what it's doing to actually go and launch the app, and then I can hover over and it can show me what I'm hovering over, and when I click on it, it shows me what it captured there.
Oh,
this
I
is
really
super
like that.
cool.
Yeah. Because it's often been like a lot of these tools have the ability to do this kind of thing where it's like session recording, but what gets produced is always just like complete garbage.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so testing your thing before. So now if I said page dot, if I did this,
right,
and then I wanted to wait and get that screenshot, I should see the view app, not my static HTML app.
Yeah,
that's on the main page. So let's run that and just see if it works.
Don't forget to save it.
Yes, good idea, Simon. It's going to fail, and it's going to fail because it's small and can't find that text right now.
Oh, interesting.
So it probably worked, or it probably timed out, I assume. Ooh, that's what I don't want to see, is that kind of stuff. Yeah. So let's just change the context, though.
Yeah, perfect.
So that we're not doing the iPhone thing. And hopefully it doesn't, Chromium doesn't remember the size that it was opened at last time. No. Finished a lot quicker.
The truth.
Oh, so it didn't wait, which is disappointing. Now I wonder why it didn't wait. Is there a command I need to do to tell it to wait? Probably. Well, let's have a look.
So there is a wait for load state on it.
Okay. That would be on the page, I assume.
Yeah.
So we do await for load state.
Yeah, we could try that. I don't know if that's going to be the right one, or... See, there's a lot of this like wait for selector stuff.
Yeah, it's more like there's a couple things I want to wait for, because there's also network idle. Okay, that's some of the options here. So
network idle would probably be pretty good. Ooh. Yeah, see, like that network idle one feels like a problem to me.
Because of the 500 milliseconds?
Yeah, so I mean, that immediately makes your test super slow.
It does, yeah. Well, let's just see what happens if I don't give it anything. See what the defaults do for us.
But I suppose the nice thing is that in the modern world, that worked
at least.
Cool. Like in the modern world, we can just run this stuff in Docker. So if we needed to spin up 100 containers to run our tests in massive parallelization, we could do that.
And they do, in fact, provide a Docker container specifically for that, which is nice. That's somewhere in the, oh, here it is, under integrations. So you can just pull that Docker image, run your tests. And they have lots of integration hooks already in there for things like GitHub Actions and Azure Pipelines and pretty much everything that you might be using. So that is just a really brief introduction into some of what's possible with Playwright. I'm hoping to dig into this a little bit more. Might need a little more robust of a sample application here. Like you said, something that does auth, something where we're loading data. One of the things that I'm really interested in with the network piece is that when I'm doing automation testing, it's really hard sometimes to test those failure scenarios. So like checking if the network fails, am I displaying an appropriate error message? That kind of thing is really hard to test sometimes. So having those hooks in place to simulate the network seems super useful to me. And it also means that you could potentially even test your application without having a backend in place. You could just simulate most of your backend interactions, which could speed things up because you're not waiting on a backend. But also for those CI scenarios or the continuous testing as part of your pipeline. If you can test just the front end in isolation, that could be really useful too.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited by this. So we will continue to dig into this, I'm sure, in subsequent episodes. So thanks everybody for joining us on today's episode. Remember to like, comment, and share. And if you need to write a script, to like everything 1,000 times. You have the tools at your disposal now to do it. And we'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye.